Welcome to today's video on preparing a strong performance, understanding and conveying your character. The first step in any dramatic preparation is to do some background research. Now, you'll first want to determine what style or genre your song is. If your song is from a musical, an opera, or an oratorio, a lot of your character study will involve researching the show that your song is from. This will give you an insight into your character as a whole and your character within the context of that one song. You can do this by watching the show, opera or oratorio, reading a synopsis or listening to the soundtrack, or reading the script. If your song is an art song, you'll want to decide first if it's a standalone art song or if it's from a song cycle. If it's from a song cycle, it's most likely connected to a larger story or journey. So you'll want to research the song cycle as a whole. You'll also want to research the composer and poet of your song cycle and determine where they were in their own lives when they wrote this piece. Now, for folk songs, rock, pop, country, bluegrass, jazz, blues, spirituals, and hymns, you get a little bit of creative license. You also want to study the composer and lyricist and find out where they were in history when they wrote this song. But you can also come up with your own creative storyline for what was going on in this character's life that caused them to need to express themselves and their inner world through music. Now, when you're thinking about creating a character or studying a character that's already been written in a show, it can be helpful to ask yourself some questions. So Stanislavski is a famous Russian theater director and actor. And he had a method for acting, and part of his method was asking himself these 7 questions as if he were the character. So when you're creating a character, sit with these questions and journal about them and see what kind of insight or creativity you can have and engage with this character. So ask yourself, who am I? Where am I? When is it? What do I want? Why do I want it? How will I get it? And what do I need to overcome? And these can be helpful in characters that are already set within a show or in songs where you're inventing the character yourself. The next step in preparing a strong dramatic performance is to treat your text like a monologue. This means that you'll write the text out like you would a monologue, reading through it to check for comprehension. Then determine the action or motivation of the monologue. And you want to be able to distill this down into one verb. And the stronger the verb, the better. So if your verb is to like, think instead about maybe to adore, to love, to worship. Make your verb or your motivation as strong as possible. So after you've come up with one overarching action or motivation, then you want to break the text down into beats. Now, I'm using the word beats here, and it's not the musical term beats, it's a theater term, and it just means a change in thought. So mark out all the changes in thought with a slash, and then determine the action for each beat. So you'll have one overarching action or motivation and then individual actions or motivations for each beat. And this way you'll actually begin to develop a journey for your character. After you've done this, you want to read the monologue aloud. And this step-by-step process was laid out for me in a lecture called Teaching Contemporary Musical Theater by David Cisco and Laura Josepher, but I think it's helpful for any dramatic song, not just musical theater. And you can find out more about them and information about their work on contemporarymusicaltheater.com, which I'll link in the YouTube description. Next, you want to figure out how the music interacts with the monologue. So you're not just speaking a monologue, there's music for this text, and it's important to be able to identify how they're interacting and what they say, how they relate to one another. So first you want to describe the mood of the vocal melody or the voice part. Is it dark, joyful, hopeful, languid, playful? Then you want to describe the musical character of the vocal melody. And this may be a bit trickier, but ask yourself questions like, is the melody legato or staccato? Are there large leaps in the melody or mostly steps? Are there a lot of accidentals, or is the song mostly tonal and consonant? After you've done those two things with the voice part, then you want to do the same thing with the accompaniment, asking yourself, is the mood of the accompaniment the same as the voice melody? If not, what is the mood? Describe the musical character of the accompaniment. Then you want to think about the relationship between the voice line and the accompaniment. So is the accompaniment reading the singer's mind? Is the accompaniment answering the singer's questions, or is the accompaniment foreshadowing something else? In some songs, the accompaniment may even be a different character or a part of nature that the singer might be referring to. So after you've figured out how the music relates with the text, then you want to do some mirror work. So we have monologue, music, mirror. Now, this is the part of the process that may take the most patience, and it's definitely a process. So you need to be patient with yourself and be willing to explore and be creative and experiment. What I would suggest doing is performing the monologue first in front of a mirror, then perform the song in front of a mirror, and then repeat. And while you're doing this, ask yourself the following questions. Is the emotion I'm trying to convey apparent in my reflection? Is there a stronger choice I can make? How does this emotion or this motivation or action affect my body? And will what I'm trying to convey read in the room that I will be performing in? So if you're curious about ways to develop some stronger dramatic habits in your singing, I would encourage you to look into these resources, which I will link in the description on YouTube. These were the resources that I used to help me compile this video for you. Thank you so much and happy singing.